Can the man appointed by the state to help Houston ISD provide a roadmap for other struggling districts? Details on today's Texas Standard.
Texas Standard is a production of KUT Austin, KERA North Texas, Houston Public Media, and Texas Public Radio in San Antonio.
I'm Angela Kocherga in El Paso. Also ahead, we'll have the latest on the plan to stop the screwworm from spreading as more cases appear in South Texas. Plus, fire safety concerns about the batteries powering e-bikes. And Texas is likely to become the world's largest hub for data centers. And that has residents across the state concerned, including those in suburban areas. Plus, go Spurs go! The team recovered from 2 losses to claim victory over the Knicks in New York. We'll have all the details and much more on today's Texas Standard. No matter where you are, it's Texas Standard Time on this Tuesday, June 9th, 2026. I'm Angela Kocherga, and so glad you can join us. If you're a Spurs fan like I am, you're basking in the glow of the team's narrow 115 to 111 victory over the Knicks in the NBA Finals. Before a packed crowd in New York last night, the young players proved they could recover from losing 2 games at home in San Antonio. The final free throws from Stefan Casso with 6.8 seconds remaining sealed the deal. The game was also a test for Victor Wembanyama, who overcame big mistakes in the previous game to help lead his team to a crucial win. David Brown will have a lot more about last night's victory and a look ahead to Game 4 a little later in our program. Wemby has quickly become the standard bearer for the Spurs, and I'd argue soon the entire NBA. And as a big Spurs fan, I'm going to make a connection to our top story. The need for a standard bearer for struggling school districts in Texas has never been greater, and some think they found one in the man helping Houston ISD. It's been 3 years since the state appointed Superintendent Mike Miles to lead the largest school district in the state. Since then, the district has implemented several controversial reforms in the name of improving student outcomes at failing campuses. The changes include prescribed lesson plans, strict classroom management, and frequent assessments. So can some of the standards set by Mike Miles in Houston be duplicated at other declining school districts in Texas? Here to tell us more is Nusaiba Misan, who has been reporting on this issue for the Houston Chronicle. Nusaiba, welcome back to the Texas Standard.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's start with which of Miles' reforms are spreading beyond Houston and how many districts are we talking about?
Yeah, so elements of the reforms that are playing out at Houston ISD are likely to be implemented or are being implemented in at least 12 other districts, either through district hires or appointments of former HIC officials or through what's called turnaround partnerships.
So what is a turnaround partnership?
Under 2017 state law in Texas, a school district can partner with an outside organization such as a nonprofit, a charter management organization, another higher education academic institution to outsource its daily operations to that organization. And so that comes in the form of a contract for a certain number of years and to meet certain accountability standards during those years.
So do the districts that plan to take up these reform policies have anything in common with each other?
Yeah, so all of these districts have schools that are lowly rated in the state's A through F accountability rating system. And so they're seeking to improve their schools and receive higher ratings in the state's grading system.
So let's zoom in on Fort Worth ISD, which was recently taken over by the state. It's putting F-rated and some D-rated schools into a structured teaching model called Elevate. You just mentioned that. So tell us about this approach. It resembles the new education system Miles introduced to HISD. What does this program entail?
Yes, so the program is focused in on Fort Worth's F-rated and certain D-rated schools. Through this structured model that includes putting more staff members into classrooms and to have a instructional model that's similar to HISD where they teach through a lesson, and then for certain students who need additional instruction, they'll have a reteach. And the model is being spearheaded by a former HISD official who was hired to be Fort Worth's deputy superintendent.
Well, several districts plan to partner with Third Future Schools. That's the charter school network Miles founded. What's the potential impact of these partnerships on the districts in question?
So under these reforms, HISD has seen increases in school ratings and no F-rated schools. These reforms could help other districts increase school ratings. There are some drawbacks that Houston community members have pointed to, such as high teacher turnover, as part of these reforms that have implemented in HISD.
Anything else that people have pointed out as concerning?
And some community members have also pointed to the prescribed lessons as too rigid for students and teachers.
So, well, what's on the horizon for Houston ISD in the new year? I know there are more changes yet to come.
Yeah, so Houston ISD appears to be trying to stay the course for the reforms that it has already set out, but it is also rolling out some new programs as well. For example, it's rolling out what it's calling a Kinderbridge program to improve reading for the district's youngest students post-kindergarten before first grade. It is also rolling out schools that focus on what they're calling experiential learning, hands-on experiences for schools as preparation for what the district is calling a world that is ubiquitous with AI.
Well, finally, let's just drill down a little. This Superintendent Miles is being touted as someone who has set up some strong standards. We've got these other struggling districts. How far, looking ahead, what are you watching for? How far could this spread to other districts that are clearly having trouble as well, whether they're being overseen by the state or not?
We're watching for whether other school districts will adopt HISD reforms. Under state law, a district must meet certain standards in order to maintain its democratically elected board and local control. And so districts might turn to what's called turnaround partnerships in order to improve its school ratings.
We've been speaking to Nusaybah Mizan, who reports on education for the Houston Chronicle. Nusaybah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Soccer fans from across the world are coming to North Texas this month for the FIFA World Cup, and local health leaders have been preparing for the influx of people for about a year and a half. KERA's Abigail Ruman reports hospital and public health officials say what they're doing hasn't changed much, but how they're doing it has.
North Texas is used to big events, like the state fair or concerts. Local health leaders say the main difference with preparing for the World Cup is the scale. Courtney Edwards directs a team at Parkland Hospital that provides support and guidance for emergency medical services. Her team tends to focus on natural disasters and other emergencies that are more common.
Now we've just added a large sporting event to that.
Hospital leadership has been working to ensure additional staff are available, preparing the language translation service provider for higher demand, and adding more than 50 beds. At the same time, doctors and departments have been getting ready for health issues they already expect to encounter, including heat-related injuries, like severe sunburns or dehydration. Edwards says the planning process allowed Parkland to stress the plans it already has in place.
How things change a little bit is that integration with our partners, understanding their processes.
Parkland is a World Cup designated facility, meaning it will receive the patients if there's a mass casualty event or something that requires trauma-level care on the east side of the Metroplex during the tournament. That also meant participating in monthly meetings with emergency response partners. One of those partners is Texas Health Resources, one of the largest healthcare systems in the region with 29 hospitals. It also has a hospital that's a designated facility in Fort Worth. Becky Tucker is a senior vice president for the system. Its preparation was similar to Parkland's, including ensuring enough staff are available and understand the various emergency plans. Tucker says the 33 Texas Health Urgent Care Centers are also part of the system's World Cup plan.
We have taken an approach to ensure that our entire community within Texas Health is prepared.
But hospitals and emergency medical providers aren't the only part of North Texas's healthcare infrastructure that have been preparing for over a year.
We always say some weird infectious disease is only a plane ride away or something.
Dr. Philip Wong is the public health director for Dallas County.
Being able to be prepared for those things in such a large scale is probably the biggest challenge.
Dallas County Health and Human Services is testing for a wider range of diseases in both wastewater and mosquito traps. It is also responsible for contact tracing, disease prevention, education, and outreach, which can be complicated by the World Cup. Wong says public health officials have to share information in a wider range of languages and quickly identify infectious disease concerns, since fans may be traveling in from other countries and quickly going to another city in the U.S. But the department hasn't gotten additional funding, according to Wong.
There's a broad spectrum of things that could happen and impact us that we have to be prepared for all of these things simultaneously and at enhanced levels, but without really additional resources.
Despite the lack of support, Wong says the World Cup is a great opportunity for the region that took a lot of work from a lot of people. Courtney Edwards with Parkland says that work may benefit North Texas beyond the tournament.
Hopefully, the plans that we are putting into place aren't just for this event, that it is going to create lasting and sustainable change for our regional's response to big events.
I'm Abigail Ruman in Dallas.
Wells Dunbar, our audience engagement editor, joins us now. Hi, Wells.
Hi, Angela. Great to be with you. Fuel prices and whether they're making folks rethink their summer travel plans, the talk of Texas as a fragile ceasefire holds between Iran and the U.S. Recent polling from the Texas Top Politics Project found 61% of Texans are very concerned about gas prices. So whether you're rethinking that road trip, staying closer to home, or just watching the numbers at the pump, we want to hear from you. Are rising fuel costs changing your summer plans? Go to texasstandard.org/talk and leave us a voice message. We would love to share it on air later this week. Paige Hellman tells us that the prices have made her buy a hybrid. She said, I would have bought all electric, but most of the charging stations I used to see are gone. She says, I'm sick of worrying about gas prices, and this pointless war was the last straw. Just one reaction we're seeing about this topic, and there is plenty to explore, whether we're talking about how you get around or airplane travel. Regardless, we want to hear your thoughts. Go to texasstandard.org/talk and leave us a voice message. We want to share it with the audience out there, Angela.
Yeah, so weigh in. Thank you so much, Wells. There's much more Texas Standard ahead, including the latest local community questioning the rapid expansion of data centers. Plus, thinking of getting an e-bike or have one now, what you need to know about the batteries powering the bikes. All that and more when the Standard continues.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, committed to strengthening the state's workforce and its communities through safety and wellness grants and education initiatives. More at texasmutual.com/community impact. Support for Texas Standard comes from Good Spread, an Austin-based mineral sunscreen brand seeking to make clean, reef-safe SPF for every body under the sun. Now at H-E-B stores across Texas. More at goodspreadsuncare.com.
This is the Texas Standard. I'm Angela Kocherga. Federal officials have confirmed 3 new cases of the New World Screwworm in Texas cattle. That brings the state's total to 5 in less than a week. The parasite was eradicated from the U.S. decades ago, but now scientists and ranchers are racing to contain it. Texas Public Radio's Brian Kirkpatrick has more.
Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins visited a USDA livestock insect lab in Kerrville, about 65 miles from San Antonio, on Monday. She says Texas is entering what she called a new phase in the battle against screwworm.
We're just at the beginning of this now new phase of the battle with it on our side of the border, but we will be watching very, very closely.
The latest detections involve a calf, a goat, and a dog found in different parts of Texas. New World Screwworm is a flesh-eating parasite whose larvae feed on living tissue. Texas is home to the nation's largest cattle industry, making the outbreak a major concern for ranchers and agricultural officials. Rollins stressed that the outbreak does not pose a food safety risk. To prevent the pest from spreading, federal and state agencies have established quarantine zones and will start releasing sterile flies this week. These flies mate with wild screwworms but produce no offspring, helping suppress the population. But it will take a while. Currently, all sterile flies are imported.
Our goal is to have enough sterile flies deployed and out into Texas and wherever else this happens to be before the next summer season pops up.
San Antonio rancher and Texas A&M regent John Bellinger, whom President Trump recently appointed as a senior advisor on screwworm preparedness, says expanding sterile fly production will be crucial.
There's a lot of research going on. We hope it works. We hope we can come up with something. But the obvious is we need more sterile flies.
Michael Schmoyer, Associate Administrator of the USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, says containing the outbreak will depend in part on ranchers and animal owners voluntarily reporting suspected cases.
You want this to get over quicker? Have people report. Ask people to report. Beg people to report. That's what we need.
Governor Greg Abbott has declared a state of emergency for all 254 counties in Texas. In San Antonio, I'm Brian Kirkpatrick for the Texas Standard.
And you're listening to the Texas Standard. Texas is poised to become the world's largest data center market in the next 4 years. That's according to the Data Center Coalition. The vast expansion of data centers in the state has led to growing concern among some residents and elected officials in suburban areas. Houston Public Media's Melissa Enaje reports on how one Fort Bend County community is responding.
With a population of over 78,000 people, Missouri City is home to a range of regional manufacturing and consumer goods industries. It's part of a county that's expected to reach 1 million residents in the next couple years, transforming from a once small suburban town to a growing hub for new residents and businesses. Officials there have recently passed new zoning regulations affecting industrial businesses like storage, warehouses, and concrete batch plants. But one measure in particular requires any newly proposed data centers to disclose potential energy and water usage before they can be approved for a building permit. Speaking at a recent city council meeting leading up to the vote, Development Services Director Jennifer Thomas Gomez says the new zoning amendment doesn't prohibit data centers from being built.
So this gives us actually proactive ability to create the standards that we want to see for locations within the city of where they would be appropriate. So whether it's protection from a utility standpoint, from a design standpoint, from an adjacency standpoint, it allows us to be proactive in that process.
Currently, no data centers exist within Missouri City. Land use legal experts say close to 400 data centers are in Texas, with 55 in the greater Houston region. The region could soon account for up to a quarter of all data centers in the state. Dan Diorio is Vice President of State Policy for the Data Center Coalition, a national trade association for the industry. He says data centers are the backbone of the 21st century economy, and Texas is leading the way.
It is every telehealth appointment, every online classroom, every online purchase, a banking or financial transaction. It is electronic healthcare records, 911 geolocation, state and local government, you name it.
Researchers with the nonprofit Houston Advanced Research Center say while data center investment brings enormous economic opportunity to Texas, it also carries significant challenges for the electric grid and for natural resources. Data centers need constant cooling for their servers with enough energy to power operations. Roughly 30% of the total energy consumed by a data center is used to prevent high-powered chips from failing due to heat. The amount of water and energy it takes to fuel the infrastructure is concerning for Missouri City officials. But Diorio says water usage is a common misconception with data centers, claiming they are extremely efficient water users. He warns that being an unwelcoming community has a domino effect with other potential businesses. He says the data center industry has already contributed over $3 billion in state and local tax revenues in the past 3 years.
I think what's key in these conversations is don't want to impose punitive or unachievable restrictions that ultimately drive development out. Data centers create significant business ecosystems around them.
University of Houston computer engineering professor Harish Krishnamurthy says daily human habits contribute to the need for massive modern facilities that store data and power artificial intelligence training centers.
The typical data centers, their main duty is like, when you send out a request, for an image, or, you want to store something as an email, or all these would go and sit in some data centers. The limitation of how much we can do with AI now, it is basically with respect to the infrastructure.
Krishnamurti says hyperscale larger data centers in the future are going to need
a few million gallons of water per day. So that is, maybe up to 5 million gallons per day. That's a really high requirement on the water use.
The average mid-sized data center uses 300,000 gallons of water a day, depending on the type of water cooling system. That's according to a new policy brief from the nonprofit Houston Advanced Research Center. Researchers there say, quote, "No one knows how we'll meet the industry's insatiable demand for water and electricity," end quote. A recent survey by the University of Houston's Hobby School of Public Affairs examined Houstonians' opinions on data centers and artificial intelligence. Maria Perez Arguelles is a U of H research professor and worked on the report. She says a major finding is that people oppose data centers but support AI because they use it a lot.
They are worried and uncertain about the impact that data centers can have on energy demand. The grid, as we know, is already having high demand, especially with our long summers and with other natural disasters that may put an extra strain on it.
Back in Missouri City, the new zoning regulation will require public hearings before any new data center can be approved for a special use permit. Both the City Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission will consider how the data center and other industrial facilities will affect traffic, noise, and the environment. In Fort Bend County, I'm Melissa Nahe.
Hey, what's cooking? Make sure to join us as we check in with Texas's top taco journalists to hear about the latest innovation stories and the people behind many a Texan's favorite go-to. It's Mondo Rayo with the Tacos of Texas, Thursday on the Texas Standard.
Support for Tacos of Texas comes from H-E-B.
From the Texas Newsroom, I'm Matt Harab. Texas is now dealing with multiple confirmed cases of New World Screwworm, including in a dog that had recently traveled to Mexico. Chad Cross is a professor at the Texas Tech University School of Veterinary Medicine.
Early reports do indicate that the dog was recently in Mexico. We do know in South America, Central America, and through Mexico, as they've been collecting data on infested animals, that dogs are one of the potential animals that have shown infectivity.
Cross says there are no current guidelines for companion animals brought across borders. The confirmation of New World Screwworm has state and federal officials concerned and at odds. U.S. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins rebuked Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller Monday for suggesting that ranchers might avoid reporting infestations because of quarantine restrictions that follow a confirmed case.
That is a very unserious comment from a perhaps unserious ag commissioner with just a few months left. It is also a very dangerous suggestion.
Miller lost his Republican primary earlier this year. He has been outspoken against parts of the federal screwworm response. A former lawyer for Texas Republican Ken Paxton says he's endorsing Paxton's opponent, Democrat James Tallarico. Our Blaise Gainey says the announcement came from attorney Dan Cogdell during his podcast.
During the conversation, Paxton's former lawyer revealed he's endorsing Tallarico over his former client.
I think what people are hungry for is a campaign that's going to bring us together. And that is exactly why I am supporting you. As you know, I defended Ken Paxton for years in the impeachment trial and in state criminal cases. But in my view, respectfully, I think Ken has lost sight of his core mission, which is to represent the people of Texas.
Though it should be noted that records show Cogdell has voted in Democratic primaries as recently as 2024. I'm Blaise Gainey in Austin.
Closing arguments are set for today in the murder trial of Carmelo Anthony. He's accused of stabbing another student at a track meet in Frisco last year. Anthony claims it was self-defense. The case has received national attention because Anthony is black and the victim was white. And the Trump administration is waiving federal environmental laws to speed up a border project in Big Bend National Park and Big Bend Ranch State Park. That's according to a preliminary federal notice posted on Monday. The waivers cover a more than 100-mile stretch of the border from the state park through the national park. U.S. Customs and Border Protection is planning a mix of vehicle barriers, surveillance tech, and patrol road upgrades across the parks. I'm Matt Harrop in the Texas Newsroom.
Support for these Texas headlines comes from Texas Monthly Presents The Story, a docuseries about the state of Texas, our culture, and what's at stake from the perspective of the magazine's writers. Weekends on local PBS stations and streaming on the PBS website and app.
33 minutes past the hour, Texas Standard Time. I'm David Brown. In Austin, Cap Metro's bike share program's temporarily off the road after a fire damaged part of the facility where its electric bikes were stored and charged. Now, investigators are still trying to determine exactly what caused the blaze, but the incident's renewed questions about the lithium-ion batteries that power not just e-bikes, but scooters, tools, lawn equipment, a growing number of devices in our homes. Stories about battery fires can leave folks wondering whether the bike charging overnight in the garage might pose a risk they haven't fully considered. To help us separate fact from fear, we're joined by D.K. Ezekoye. He is an engineering professor at the University of Texas at Austin. Professor, welcome to the Texas Standard.
Thank you.
Let's begin with the basics. What exactly is inside an e-bike battery, and why do these batteries sometimes catch fire?
Inside these battery packs are, as you know, lithium-ion batteries. And so these battery chemistries are generally safe, but within any given lithium-ion cell are various chemical components that under the wrong condition can react in a way that, obviously they were not designed to react. That would then generate a lot of heat and a lot of toxic and flammable gases. So a typical battery pack for an e-bike might contain 50 to 100 sort of smaller cells, and any one of these might be affected, again, either through a manufacturing issue, through abuse, and that could be, unusual vibration, damage, etc. It could be an electrical issue. And so when one of these might fail, then it can cascade and propagate to the other ones and cause, all these negative consequences that we're sort of talking about.
Just to be clear, we're not trying to get to the bottom of what happened with the Austin incident involving those several bikes being charged and stored together and what might actually have been the cause of that fire. But I'm curious, does concentrating large numbers of batteries in one place create a unique danger?
It does, in the sense of any hazardous material that is concentrated can then obviously have this potential cascading effect where the hazard or danger associated with any single failure is magnified. And so, this is not sort of specific to lithium-ion batteries. This is true for fuel storage in general. So anytime we store a large amount of energy, the sort of negative consequences magnify with the amount of energy that we store. So,
but I'm curious about indoors. Is I'll just give you an example. When I heard about this incident, I thought, well, what about the safety of that e-bike that I've got plugged in? Maybe a couple of them, might have them charging at one time overnight. Is the fact that they're inside with the door closed, pretty close together. How comfortable should I be? How comfortable should we be about the way that we're charging up our e-bikes?
Well, I'll tell you, it's not absolutely obvious that the charging process in and of itself is necessarily the scenario or condition that we should be most fearful of.
Could be just storage.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's storage. And so I think storage is really the critical issue. Now, of course, storage once charged is much more important than storage if discharged. So we want our batteries to be fully charged because it gives us the most distance if it's an e-bike,
of course,
or most time if it's our cell phone or laptop. Sort of like the simple rules are, don't have your e-bike by the door. Having the bike at an exit, it's a low probability that it's going to fail, but the consequences are disastrous and they're significant, so it's a high-risk scenario. So it's better not to have it by a means of egress. And we think about exposure. So this is, all fire is really based upon the transfer of heat. So if there's something that's ignitable near it, that's a problem. So when I think about my battery packs, whether it's really in a storage scenario or in a charging scenario, I'm sort of conscious about what's around it and whether those things might be easy to ignite. It's really about the cascading failure, even outside of the e-bike, to boxes or to, clothing or to curtains that we'd have to worry about. But if for whatever reason your bike is failing near something that is flammable, getting that other thing wet is less likely to cause ignition of that other material.
Ofodike Ezekoye is the Joe C. Walter Jr. Chair in Engineering and Professor of Mechanical Engineering at the University of Texas at Austin. Professor, thanks so much for talking with us, and we'll see you out there on the road.
It's been a pleasure.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Barron, Adler, Clough & Odo, a Texas eminent domain and condemnation law firm helping to protect the rights of Texas property owners for more than 40 years. More at barronadler.com. Support for Texas Standard comes from Texas Casa. For a child in foster care, small moments today can have a big impact tomorrow. More on how lending time and support can help make a difference at becomeacasa.org.
Well, at this time on our broadcast, we heard our special segment this month highlighting one of the top 10 moments in Texas music history. Alas, we can't play it here on our podcast because of issues with music streaming rights, but you can find it over at texasstandard.org or check out a version on Texas Standard's Facebook or Instagram page. And while you're at it, make sure to visit us at texasstandard.org and cast your own ballot for the best Texas songs of all time.
The Kerrville Folk Festival is known for music, but in the aftermath of last year's tragic 4th of July flooding, it's become something else entirely. Texas Public Radio's Jack Morgan explains.
Deb Rouse runs the Kerrville Folk Festival, an 18-day music festival held on the Quiet Valley Ranch, about 8 miles southwest of the city. For more than half a century, the festival has found young talent and given them a chance to make it. But on the morning of the 4th of July flood, Rouse got to her office and quickly found this was more than just a flood.
As I was sitting at my desk, my phone started ringing, both my cell phone and my office phone. And so I'm trying to contend with those two phones, and I can hear every other extension in the office ringing. And it was people from all over the country calling in saying, we're members of the festival community. How can we help? What can we do?
They were folk festival fans from across the country who saw Kerrville on the news and wanted to help. Rouse began by suggesting the Red Cross and Salvation Army, but eventually added a donation button to the Kerrville Folk Festival Foundation website.
I anticipated we might get $10K. Just putting that button on our website, we raised $100,000 in about a 2-month period of time.
But they weren't just raising money for flood relief.
We also made the decision to open the ranch up to displaced individuals who might need a place to go.
Another of those calls was from another nonprofit asking if they could stage a kitchen there to help get people fed.
Said, well, actually, I have a commercial kitchen that's not in use. Would that be helpful? And he was like, that would be amazing.
And just like that, the 50-acre Kerrville Folk Festival grounds became a critical hub for relief efforts. Most everyone I met lost someone they knew. Volunteer and retired police officer Phil Engstrom isn't armed with a gun, but with decades of experience. He too felt the loss intensely.
Coach Zunker was my son's soccer coach, and we spent 4 years with him in high school at all the soccer games, and he was a very popular and wonderful guy.
Engstrom lives about 7 miles northeast of Kerrville, and his home was not damaged. But as one does in tragic events, everyone helps.
My wife and I went and helped somebody buck out their house, and they had a story of how their son got swept out of the house but got into a tree, and mom got swept out and she got into a tree, and they survived, but the dad sat there on the roof of his house not knowing all night long if everyone, that had to have been devastating also.
Engstrom said that soon the Quiet Valley Ranch got a little noisier.
There's a food distributor out of Dallas that brought an 18-wheeler. It was a refrigerator unit, and it had food, meat, chips, paper goods, napkins, everything you can imagine.
That's great news, but much of it was perishable, so the crew went right to work planning and cooking meals. And how does one plan the cooking of hundreds of meals on fast turnaround?
I've always said that I'm the type to run into the fire, right? Like it's like a innate thing.
Chef Sarah Hurd felt the call to go to Kerrville even though she lives the other side of Austin. When she got there, she was a bit overwhelmed.
Oh man, I just got goosebumps. The first thing that hit me was the smell, and I'll never forget the smell.
Hurd threw herself into organizing the kitchen and planning hundreds of meals they would turn.
I would go and I would work my shift, and when we called it for a day, I would go down to the river and just walk. I would turn my phone off and I would just walk and take it all in. And I think that's part of the reason that I felt so much like I needed to be there and I needed to help with whatever I could.
Chef John White was asked to come to Kerrville, and the offer included one detail that many might refuse.
Be prepared to sleep in the bed of your truck as long as you want to hold out, and meet me there as soon as you can.
Almost immediately after arriving, he faced a challenge, making a meal for hundreds of people.
We have 300, we have 500 meals, we have 3 hours. What can we do? And then just started pushing it out, and we didn't stop. I mean, as soon as we got there, we had meals to do.
White stayed for about a month, cooking food on a grand scale and in tough conditions.
I wouldn't change a thing. I'm really thankful that I got to do it.
Donette Jez works for the Kerrville Folk Festival as a coordinator. The flood was deeply personal for her, too.
And I think the worst time is when they found Jane's guitar.
Donette said her friend Jane was a gifted musician.
And Jane was known to play the guitar to the children and have all these nice songs and whatever. Just a kind heart. Very, very, very amazing woman.
Her loss was personal and devastating, but her post-flood experience also brought moments of joy.
There's an overwhelming loss, but by the same token, we're in this together.
The Quiet Valley Ranch has given more than a half-century to keep folk music alive and growing. And after last year's 4th of July flood, it managed to give locals yet another reason to love it. I'm Jack Morgan in Kerrville.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Texas Monthly, producer of Where the River Took Us, a podcast about the July 4th floods from survivor Aaron Parsley's perspective, through the voices of his family and others, telling the story of grief, healing, and survival. Available on all podcast platforms. Support for Texas Standard comes from UT San Antonio, providing education and research for communities across Texas, with a focus on student success and workforce development. The University of Ambition, utsa.edu.
Where do you find my armor to be too cold? The place I've said is far too bold. What flame do you see to stow?
It's the Texas Standard. I'm David Brown. After dropping the first 2 games of the NBA Finals at home, the San Antonio Spurs walked into Madison Square Garden last night facing the kind of challenge that can define a season, maybe even a team. And they answered it big time with a dominant bounce-back performance from Victor Wembanyama and some late-game shot-making from De'Aaron Fox. The Spurs beat the New York Knicks 115-111 last night, cutting New York's lead to 2-1 and guaranteeing the finals will bring the Spurs back home for at least one more game. But that's the question. Was this a turning point for the team from Texas or just a stay of execution? Jared Weiss covers the Spurs for The Athletic, powered by the New York Times, and as a New York native now living in San Antonio, I think he knows the territory. Jared, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Some breathtaking final seconds. You recovered from last night?
Oh, yeah. No, that was a fun one. It was great to see De'Aaron Fox get back to being clutch like he has in the past. And Wemby looked like himself and looked like he had things pretty figured out.
Yeah, yeah. That was probably the biggest rebound of the night. Wemby's comeback after making some big mistakes at the end of Game 2 in San Antonio. 32 points last night, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. That's a lot to put on any single player. How badly do the Spurs need him to keep doing that?
I mean, he's their best player, right? It's they're relying upon him, and the thing is, I mean, Game 2 wasn't that good of a game for him. It was a pretty mediocre game for him, but really, his mistakes were just in that one moment where he threw the ball away, and then he ran up to Brunson too aggressively and fouled Brunson.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he wasn't a great ending for him, but it wasn't a terrible ending. In fact, it was actually a pretty decent fourth quarter in a lot of respects, and so. This game just showed a level of consistency. Mitch Johnson did a really nice job of changing up their offense to attack from different angles to get him near the rim. And I think that was the big thing, was just offensively, he was able to get near the rim a lot more consistently over the course of the night. And then he did a nice job shooting the ball as well.
Yeah. Playing at the Garden was supposed to be a major advantage for the Knicks. Instead, the team on the road has now won all 3 games in this series. What's up with that?
I'm not really sure home court advantage matters as much as it used to in the NBA. It seems like because basketball's played in such up-tempo transition where teams are trying to run so much and then teams are also taking threes, I think that the pace of the game is up and the variance of the game because of three-point shooting is up. And so I think it just makes home court a little bit less of an advantage. And I think what's good with the Spurs, I'm not surprised by this at all. They've shown that they don't really get rattled, and even though they're a young team, being on the road doesn't seem to affect them that much. Like, it helps to be at home, and we saw like Josh Hart on the Knicks, great example. He finally had a great shooting night, and he was at home and he was feeding off the crowd. And he had a great game, and it's usually like those role players. They have their big shooting nights when they're at home. That tends to be it, but I think it just kind of levels out in this series.
Yeah, until last night, it seemed like the Spurs couldn't hold it together in crunch time. In the final seconds, the Knicks came back with that perfectly set up 3-pointer, and it looked like San Antonio might let this one slip away again. Did they get lucky here, or any signs that this young team's grown up a bit in this series, maybe learned how to close it out?
Yeah, I don't see luck. I just see that they executed well, and that they're not a bad enough team to get swept, and they're a good enough team to come back in the series. I mean, I don't remember when we talked exactly, but I think I remember us going over the fact that, listen, this team goes as Wemby goes, which is not groundbreaking analysis. Their best player, when he plays really well, they're going to play really well. That's their big advantage. When Victor is on top of his game, he is easily better than everybody else, even though Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns are both great. Wemby eating both ends is just an advantage that trumps everything. And when they get that from him, it just allows everything else to flow. But vice versa, he was able to do that because their guards were executing so well in that game. They were able to get deep into the paint where they can just throw the ball up in the air to him, and boom, he just slaps it in. And that's when they've been at their best, is when their guards can dribble really deep into the paint, and then all Victor's got to do is just slap the ball out of the air.
I don't know if you heard this, but Knicks coach Mike Brown spent a lot of his post-game press conference talking about free throws and officiating. You think he's got a legitimate gripe?
Sure, yeah. I mean, the thing that stood out in the series is Victor has kind of out of character done a few kind of dirty things. Like, there was earlier in the series in San Antonio, he kind of ripped Jose Alvarado over the shoulders on a box out, and I was like, how did they not call a flagrant foul, or I guess a technical foul for that? And then last night, he on a screen just shoved Jalen Brunson to the ground. And Art, there's an account, Art But Make It Sports, where they do a side-by-side shot of the play and then a famous piece of art, and they found this old Roman sculpture that was exactly what he had done. And you're seeing Hercules shoving somebody into the ground, and it's exactly the same. I remember watching it, I'm like, what the hell? How did they not call a foul there? That was so obvious. It was right in the middle of the play. So, Victor's getting away with some stuff that if I were the Knicks, I would be pissed off about. And
it's been a physical game. I mean, it really has.
It is. But credit to Jalen Brunson, the Knicks star. He got basically shoved in the face to the ground. He got up, he pointed at Wemby's face, said something to him, then walked over to Wemby and just set a screen and just kept on playing like nothing happened. And I was like, wow, he is a tough guy. He really is.
Yeah, for sure. Let's look ahead to Wednesday night. What's the biggest, single biggest adjustment each team needs to make here? Who should feel better about where this series stands right now? The team leading 2-1 or the team that may have finally got this sorted?
The team that won the last game is the one that usually should feel better. I mean, if the Spurs tie it up, boom, that advantage goes right back to them because they're heading back home. Listen, like the Spurs got Victor active again. They got him into a rhythm. That's the most important part here is like they're in a rhythm. They survived a really good shooting night from the Knicks again. They played great defense in the fourth quarter. I mean, those were all the signs there. Like they should feel good about where they're at right now. Now it's the finals. It's a series. So things change. The Knicks did not get much out of Towns after Towns was amazing in those first 2 games. So there's a lot more left on the table from New York, but I felt like San Antonio's execution in the fourth quarter was fantastic. Wemby was just super reliable. I mean, that was the makings of the Spurs team that got them to this point, and I think they've got plenty left in the tank to keep doing it.
I know you're not in the prediction business, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Where do you think this is headed? Are we talking about, we looking at 7 games here, less than that? Who's going to winner?
I'm optimistic this is going at least 6. I think I picked Spurs in 7 at the outset of the series. Right now, I guess I would lean Knicks in 7 just because their shooting has been so good. They have their offenses look great and they have the upper hand right now. It's hard to come back from down 2-0, but it has happened in the past, and the Spurs are very uniquely equipped to pull it off. So I think the most likely outcome would be Knicks in 7 at this point, but I could see the Spurs winning this thing in 6. Honestly, it really could happen.
Jared Weiss covers the Spurs for The Athletic. What a series to cover, too. Jared, thanks so much for sharing your expertise with us on The Standard. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Time for today's program, but you can keep up with the news 24/7 at texasstandard.org. From all of us at The Standard, thanks for listening and hope you can join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Kocherga, wishing you the very best from El Paso.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Texas Realtors, providing representation at every stage of the home ownership journey, helping clients understand their options and manage complex transaction details. Info at texasrealestate.com. Philanthropic support for Texas Standard comes from Casey and Scott O'Hare, the Winkler Family Foundation, Lynn Dobson and Greg Wooldridge, Adrian Killam, and the George Huntington family.